Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Omega Metroid podcast from OmegaMetroid.com. My name is Andy Spiteri, joined by Doomino Crossing and Dakota Lasky. Dak, what's going on, man?
Not much. I just got back from a nice weekend in Evergreen, Colorado. So that was cool. I was at a bachelorette party for a couple friends of mine getting married in January, which I've never been to a combined bachelorette party before.
I've heard of those. Was it kind of weird, or was each group doing their own thing, or like?
No, we were all together pretty much the whole time. I think there was only a moment one of the days where the group separated, but it was a chill It wasn't like a go crazy kind of bachelorette party. Like we didn't go to like Atlantic City or Vegas, obviously. So like it wasn't like that. It was pretty chill, low key, like hanging out, partaking, listening, chilling, that kind of stuff. Enjoying the scenery. Went into Denver for a day, so yeah, it was cool. So I'm back from that. I took the day off afterward to kind of hang out. I was going to spend the day playing Armored Core 6, which is what I'm going to do right after this show. I've already hit my mic, so we're starting off great.
We need a Dak mic encounter.
Yeah.
I just don't know what it is. It's my arms are so lanky. But
let me tell you
I
something.
was playing Armored Core, but I played Destiny all day instead, so.
That sounds like a pretty good day, actually.
It was a great day, yeah.
I was going to say, Mr. Doomino Crossing over there shouldn't be giving you any grief, because I was doing, yesterday, we had this guy on the ZeldaCast, because he's, his music IQ is through the roof. And I was doing my sacred intro, okay? I was like, hello, everyone, and welcome to the ZeldaCast. And this guy starts talking in the middle of it, and I was like, Doom, what the heck? You've been on the show one time, and...
Okay, so this dude, you are leaving out some important context here, Andy. So literally right before you did that, this dude was like sticking out his tongue, like he was like in some sort of like ritual or something like that. And I just started laughing, just like, what the hell is going on? And like I
sometimes you just gotta stretch your muscles before you podcast.
If you don't believe me, watch the episode yourself, and you tell me. Like I don't know who is more out of pocket, me or Andy? Like,
well,
but yes, I was on the ZeldaCast recently. It was a really fun episode. I really enjoyed chatting with you and Allison.
Yeah.
We had a really cool discussion about music, our overall thoughts on Tears of the Kingdom, and kind of a more summarized segment, you know. And it was a good time. Next weekend, I'm going to be at SAC Anime, which I believe Charles Martinet is going to be there as well. So I'm going to see him in his post-Mario role.
Yeah.
Yes. Absolutely. Very excited. And speaking of Mario, this bad boy finally arrived. The physical Super Mario Brothers movie soundtrack just got in the mail today. The digital soundtrack has been available for a while, but this thing has taken a few months to arrive, and it is finally here and in the collection.
Nice. I saw that the Mario Bros. Movie was on Amazon Prime yesterday. I almost watched it. Maybe I'll have to watch it this weekend. I don't know. But, that sounds cool. I've had a little bit of the blues earlier today. I've been getting tons of emails, and I've seen some people starting to get like their travel arrangements ready to go to PAX, which I was originally intending to go to this weekend. Then my dog had surgeries, and I had to bow out, and I'm feeling, a little blue now, because I'm like, man, that looks like fun. Like, I wish that I could go. So, wishing everybody that is going a fantastic time. If you see any cool Metroidvanias, tag me, let me know. I'm all about that. So, okay, well, I'm excited for today, because somebody, and I wish I could remember, but I, off the top of my head, don't have that information, but somebody pitched us an idea a couple weeks ago, and we're making it happen today. This is the first installment of what's going to be a new running sub-series for us, something that we're going to revisit, and we don't have a name for it, but what we're going to be doing is reviewing the Metroid manga, and I've never read any of the Metroid manga before. I read Volume 1, and we're going to be focusing on Volume 1 today, but I've never read it. I kind of sort of knew what it was about, but like not really. So I came into this, I think, as blind as someone that's been a Metroid fan for 20 years could probably be. So I'm really excited to talk about this. I thought that there was a lot of cool stuff here, but yeah, did you guys ever dip your toe into any of the manga that was released?
Not really. I mean, and to be clear, we're talking about like the official Metroid manga, like the one that like the Metroid manga, not like Samus and Joey or like the retelling of Metroid Prime 2 or whatever that was, like the manga. No, I've never read it in its entirety before. I'm pretty sure I read the first like chapter, and then I read like bits and pieces like that I'd seen on Twitter or something like that. Like I've never sat down and actually read it. And I've read a few manga here and there. Like I read Attack on Titan. I read like a Journey to the West themed kind of manga once. A couple other ones like I've dipped into like Death Note or Full Metal, whatever. But I've never been like a huge like reading a ton of manga. Like I'm not a One Piece reader or anything like that kind of guy. As much as I do like manga, I just haven't read a lot.
Right.
So it was surprising to me that I haven't read it in its entirety before, especially because it is pretty accessible on the internet. And also considering we've done the show, I'm surprised that it's taken us
Waited
this long
yeah,
to get to this. But hey, I mean, there's always whoever thought that we'd have so much Metroid content to talk about. But yeah, I'm excited to jump into this. But this is also my first time reading it in its entirety.
Yeah, I'm roughly in the same boat as well. Yes, because I've never read the manga. I've never read any of the Metroid mangas, including this official one that we're talking about today. And like you said,
Fake
Dak,
fans
I've
here.
seen.
Yeah, what are we?
It's true.
Fake fans.
I hate Metroid. It's just why am I on this podcast?
Yeah.
No, but yeah, like you said, Dak. I've seen like little bits of like strips on like Twitter and stuff like that. There's been panels from the manga. There's that one image of Ridley that I actually saw when reading the manga, and I was like,
the Ridley image. There's a
the
lot
Ridley
more good
image.
Ridley reactions in this too. Like when I was going through it, not to cut you off there, but there's more than that. Like I feel like there's so much more juice meme wise to be squeezed from this manga, because there's a lot of good. I mean, the artwork's really, really good in this manga, in my opinion. But there are a lot of good shots that are like great reaction images beyond that one. But continue, yeah, I agree.
There absolutely there is like so much like unmined meme potential in this.
There's so much more.
I absolutely agree.
There was one specific line that just cracked me up, and I don't know why, but I was actually like laughing out loud, like reading it, and I'll save it to when we get there. But yeah, kind of like with you, I'm actually I'm staring at a copy of the Ocarina of Time manga, which is the only manga I've really ever read. And if you're watching us on YouTube right now, which you should, you can see behind me kind of that I've got like a massive collection of comics, like and a lot of them like DC comics. Like I'm a big Batman fan, I'm a big Green Lantern fan, I really like the Sandman, some of those classic Alan Moore comics. Like I really love comics, and for whatever reason, it never translated for me to manga. And I think it could be as simple and as basic as it still takes me a while to process reading right to left. Which I know makes me sound like a huge loser and like whatever, but like I just it's something that I feel like I always kind of have to catch myself when I'm reading manga, and I think that's why I've never gotten into it. So once so personally I found that, and we should mention too that all of the manga has been fan translated by Metroid Database, and it's available on metroiddatabase.com. So thank you to them for doing that, for bringing this over to to a lot of people that wouldn't otherwise have it. And I think that helped me a little bit, because it was like I don't know about you guys, but I was reading it on my phone, and it was kind of like panel by panel by panel in like a very vertical way. So it was just like a little bit easier for me to get around that mental block in my head of like right to left, because you wouldn't have to go like right to left and then to the other page. I don't know what it was, but it made it go down a little bit easier for me, and I'm glad that it did, because I really enjoyed this first volume.
I agree, because same reading is hard for me too. So I'm, but no, I've actually had no problem reading the manga. I read it on my PC though, but yeah, it was really cool that it was available. I have read a bunch of manga on my phone though, and I do prefer actually reading it on my phone. So I'm not surprised that you enjoyed it more. But yeah, this was cool to jump into. I'm glad that we finally did, and I'm glad that you took a shot on it, because I feel like you were probably the most like not hesitant, but maybe not into it as much. I don't know.
I don't want to say that I wasn't into it or that I was hesitant. I actually don't know why that it took us this long to kind of get to the manga. Like way back when, like when you and I were chatting before we'd even like decided the name of our podcast, I was jotting down some ideas for if we ever did a Metroid podcast, what we could talk about, and like Metroid manga was on there, and just for some reason, it took us a long time to get here, but here we are, and yeah, I'm excited to dive into this. So the way that I've kind of did this, and I think this is the format that's going to work for us here, is why don't we go through story or chapter by chapter. I'll kind of summarize what's going on, and we can kind of chime in as needed during that recap, or just at the end of the chapter, kind of give our overall thoughts, and then kind of go from there. So I guess if you guys are ready, let's get into it. Okay, so just also to note again, this is the official Metroid manga Volume 1. We're only doing Volume 1 today. And I was trying to find some information on when it was released, and I actually didn't find that information in time for the podcast, but it was released, I hope one of you guys can maybe help me out, but clearly it was released like sometime after 2002, because it has a lot of elements of the first 4...
2003.
2003,
Sorry.
okay.
It's 2003 to 2004.
Right.
Was the run. So it came out every month from like chapter by chapter monthly from January of 2003 to May of 2004.
Does it say who published it as well?
According to Wikitroid, which I just quickly put it was in Magazine Z was what it was published in, and then it was written by Koji Tozawa, illustrated by Kenji Ishikawa, and then it was on the it had a link to the official Metroid site, but apparently it was in the Magazine Z,
right?
Magazine, I guess.
Cool. Well, yeah. Okay. Well, thank you for having that information. So it's really cool because it's written like after Metroid Fusion comes out, so it's able to weave a lot of these plots together, which I really enjoyed. Okay, so let's get started. So Chapter 1. This is the origin story. And if this was a movie, this would take like a whole movie, but thank God that this wasn't. So here we go. We start off with Samus, and the year is 2000 when the Galactic Federation forms, which is wild because
accurate. That's what happened in 2000.
I guess I'm waiting for my invite or something. But so the Galactic Federation is a community of all of these different species and nations and countries. And they've been formed together, and the most valuable, I don't know if it's a mineral or some kind of substance, as a mineral, okay.
Yeah.
The most valuable mineral in the universe is called a fluorite. And we go to the planet K2L, and we meet Rod and Virginia. I say Aran. Do you guys say Aaron? I've never said Aaron.
Aaron.
You say Aaron? Doom? Am I just a freak here?
Samus Aran.
Yeah, it's canonically Aaron.
I know, but I hate it.
Samus Aran, I don't know. Rod Aran.
Yeah.
Kind of. It's not a name.
Rod Aran actually does sound kind of cool.
Rod Aran is pretty dope.
While we're on the topic, actually, because I've been trying to change my ways and say Zebus instead of Zeebs, because I always said Zeebs for like the first, I don't know how long.
That cannot be right.
I asked my wife, and I'm like, how would you say this word? And she was like, I don't know, Zeebs. And I was like, thank you. Maybe it's a Canadian thing. I don't know. Anyways, so
no, I was the same way too until like they gave us the real pronunciation.
There you go.
I'm sorry. I never thought it was Zeebs, but maybe I don't know. Built different.
So Rod and Virginia Aaron are, of course, Samus's parents, and they are miners that are stationed on the planet K2L, and they are mining a fluorite. And all of a sudden, we get some visitors from outer space, and it's the Chozo. And we meet two Chozo in particular, Old Bird and Gray Voice. And Old Bird kind of takes a second to bond with a young Samus Aran, who is 3 years old, but fully talking and fully, like...
yeah.
She's the smartest 3-year-old child you've ever seen in your life.
All the other 3-year-olds are also talking and running around, and like 7-year-olds.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah, so there you go. They have a cute little interaction, though. I like their interaction. Samus is very is very sweet. Actually, so right before we got on the podcast, I was telling Dak and Doom I just watched Nausicaa in the Valley of the Wind the other night, and I like Samus. Young Samus almost kind of gives me like Nausicaa vibes in a way because she's very anti-violence, very very wholesome character in this interpretation. And Samus also adopts a rabbit named Pychoni. Is that how you say it?
I'm trying to. I have it pulled up here.
I know how it's spelled,
written.
but
yeah, how it's written, not how it's said.
Whatever. It's going to be Pychoni. So there we go. Well, at the same time, Grey Voice is there, and he's essentially negotiating with Rod Aran to take a whole big stash of
pretty much all of it, like,
pretty much all of it,
a pretty very solid amount of this mineral that is specifically for this caravan. And before you go ahead, I think it's really important to note here that I really like how this is also the origin story almost of the Galactic Federation itself.
Yeah,
because the story starts with the whole reason why a fluorite is being mined is because it's the fuel that's needed for the caravan to connect all of the planets together in order to literally make the Federation. So the mining of this resource is incredibly important. It's also vital to the Federation existing at all.
Yeah.
And it also it's like K2L is not just some colony Samus was living on. It's literally how the Federation is going to unite itself is based on the shoulders of the work of the people on this planet, in this colony. So the Chozo show up and they're like, hey, we know you need it for all of this caravan stuff, but actually we need it. We're not going to tell you why, but we totally need that. Can you give it to us?
Yeah. And so they say that, and of course the answer is no. Rod says, we need this for our mission, for our purposes, and you can't tell us why you need it, so we're not going to give it to you. And I almost thought that there might be some funny business here, some Ravenbeak kind of business, but the Chozo go away. They're totally
like, all right, cool.
They're just like, all right, we can't reach a deal. Okay. However, unfortunately for the citizens of K2L, the Chozo landing on that planet have attracted the attention of the space pirates, and General Ridley. Ooh, this guy he's talking, and he's a firecracker. I actually I thought it was so funny when he was just like, let's kick some ass, and he comes down.
That was the first second I was like, is that Ridley speaking, or is that someone else? Yeah. that was something.
I was at the first time I was just like, okay, this is great, and I don't know why it was so unexpected, but I think we all know the story from there. Ridley and the space pirates attack, and actually, what I didn't know is that usually you just hear that everyone on K2L was slaughtered except for Samus, which is true, but the space pirates steal all of the afluorite and bring it back on their ship, and Rod sneaks aboard, and he has like a flamethrower and ignites the afluorite, which destroys the ship. Obviously destroys the afluorite and destroys Rod himself. So Rod has perished, and Samus has to watch Ridley literally slay her mother in front of her eyes as he was about to slay 3-year-old Samus as well. And Samus sneaks away and is safe, but the colony is totaled. The colony is destroyed, and Samus is taken in by Old Bird and Grey Voice, and they take her back to the planet Zebes. So I was expecting a little bit more of a drawn-out origin story, actually, so I kind of appreciated that we kind of got to the action right away.
I thought it was great. I mean, I love that they put the origin, like, that is the origin story right then and there in that single chapter. I thought it was so well-structured.
Yeah.
It's a really good, like, sub-story of, like, the space, like, the Afluorite, like, trying to get off world, and the Chozo showing up. Like, that little bit of story is really well-constructed. I love this. I love that it didn't need to be dragged out. Like, this is, like, the teaser of, like, if there was a movie, right? Like, this would be before, like, the first act really begins. You'd get kind of like all this a little bit, if not like the first maybe 10-20 minutes of the first act. But yeah, this was really cool. I love, as someone who like knew obviously, okay, K2L, like Samus's parents getting charred. I love the little bits of like extra detail. Like, no, like Rod wasn't just standing there along with what's his wife's name? What's Samus's mom's name? Virginia. Sorry. Yes. Rod and Virginia. I think it's easy for people to just kind of be like, oh, it was Rod and Virginia in between Samus and Ridley, and really just scorches them. Like, actually, Rod, like, is on the ship.
He did
like,
something
destroys
cool.
a floor light. Virginia doesn't really do anything. That's pretty much exactly as it happens. But I like that there was a little bit more detail. I like that there's the detail of like the Chozo trying to negotiate the Floralite, which is obviously setting up for something later. What they need it for. So there's some good setup there. This chapter was, I love this. This is great. This is a great origin story right here.
Yeah, totally. It reminded me of I think I made a Man of Steel reference a couple weeks ago, and I'm about to make another one because at the beginning of that movie, you kind of see Krypton in its last few days there, and this kind of gave me that same kind of vibe where it's just like, this is awesome. Like, this is just like a great like introductory tale for an origin story for our hero that doesn't need to last like longer. It doesn't overstay its welcome, and in fact, it's way shorter than the Krypton part of Man of Steel. So I agree. I thought this was great.
Yeah, Doom, what do you think?
So for me, I like the story in concept, but I don't like the way it plays out on the paper. For me, at least, I found it really incomprehensible in a lot of parts and very difficult to follow along. And perhaps I'm stupid. You know, I do a lot of stupid things, so you know it wouldn't be out of my line of work. But like, you know, so for example, the whole part of like, you know, Rod sacrificing himself, like, to me, like, it felt like one moment he was on the ground, then all of a sudden the next moment we were in a firefight in space, and then all of a sudden he's sacrificing himself, and like it felt like things were happening like a second apart, and I was like, wait, what's going on here? The part I know Samus's mom Virginia is killed by Ridley because that's something we all know beforehand. I totally missed that in the panel when I was reading the whole Ridley exchange, which I actually really enjoy. I actually really enjoy the Ridley exchange with Samus. That's actually one of the positive notes I want to talk about, is because so there's this thing that Samus has with when she meets not Quiet Robe, I'm thinking Dread.
Gray Voice.
Who is Gray Voice?
Or
Yes.
Old Bird or whatever, yeah.
It's one of them.
Old man.
By the way, sorry, I just want to get this out really quick. I know that like you guys are making fun of the Chozo names in Metroid Dread, but like they fit. Like they fit. There's a Chozo later who's named Platinum Chest. Like,
Yeah.
all of a sudden, Ravenbeak and Quiet Robe don't seem like so silly. But I digress.
Well, yeah, I guess. Yeah, okay. I'll give you that.
But anyways, so the part of this chapter that actually really worked for me was Samus's relationship with Gray Voice, and how it kind of turned into her, you know, her antagonism with Ridley, where, you know, at first she's scared of Gray Voice, and Gray Voice kind of, you know, talks to her about like, hey, listen, we look different on the outside, but we have the same heart on the inside. And then
You're talking about Old
he's
Bird,
the one
right?
You're talking about Old Bird.
Old Bird, yeah. Okay, sorry.
I'm gonna confuse the two a lot. Just
it doesn't help when it's like
You know
they're
what?
all in black and white panels too.
I made a note actually that I was going to save for later, but seems like a good time to bring it up. I also had a hard time distinguishing between Gray Voice and Old Bird.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, so I really liked how that played out. And then during the invasion, when Samus meets Ridley, she remembers the lesson that Old Bird, right? That Old Bird taught her, and she actually tries to befriend Ridley instead, and basically Ridley instead just kind of taunts her. The dialogue isn't that great, but it's a fan translation, so it's whatever. I'm not like too torn about it. But like the actual concept of like Samus trying to befriend Ridley and then, you know, having her world turned upside down in, you know, the most traumatic way possible, I think is like a really cool story element.
Yeah. I liked, I mean, I think that moment's really cool. Like, I like the little bit of Ridley, like Ridley's face, the other meme image from that, where Ridley kind of just like looks at her with this like sad face, like pitying her almost. I'm gonna actually, I don't know if this is a hot take. As a huge Ridley fan, I don't know if I like Ridley in this. I'm gonna be really honest here.
I don't know if that's a hot take, because I thought it was great. The novelty of him like saying "let's kick some ass" at first was really fun, but
I like the manga is very like anime manga, like tropey, you know, and how like characters talk. And obviously it's a fan translation, some of it's lost in translation, but a lot of this is very tropey and you know, very usual, typical anime way of characters interacting and talking, which is totally fine. It's like a style, whatever. But there's something about Ridley, like I know he's like the cunning god of death. I know, like, especially in the manga, he's meant to be a bit more sinister. But when I'm reading it here, he comes off as like
The
silly
Joker,
and a joke. Yeah, like I can't
yeah.
take him. Which I think is a really interesting dichotomy because, and we can get into this more later. But I really love how in the manga the space pirates are treated like as a serious threat. Like they, like the Federation's afraid of them until like that one operation in Chapter 4, Chapter 5. I thought that's really cool. But at the same time, the space pirates and Ridley are all like, "You bastard! I'm gonna kick your ass! Like, I'm gonna, I'm gonna skin you alive!" I'm like, and like, what? Okay. And Ridley, the space pirates talk like, I don't know. I guess they can be kind of goofy, but like Ridley kind of comes off as like, he's like not a really crazy serious like villainy heel. He's like Seth Rollins, He gave me like Seth Rollins vibes, where he's like a wacky kind of villain, and like
he reminds me of the Joker in this.
The Joker, but less sinister, but like sinister, but almost more cheesy. I don't know.
I think your take on Ridley is ultimately kind of how I feel about the manga as whole, where it's like ultimately, I like kind of the skeletal structure, I like the point A to point B. I like the overall flow of it, but like when you're reading the literal events on the paper, I don't think it translates well to Metroid. But I think if you're able to look past that and kind of appreciate it for what it is, it can be really enjoyable. Because obviously like Ridley, the Ridley we see in here is not the Ridley that's in games like at all. This may as well be an OC.
Up. It's a bit turned up, yeah. But that's interesting you said, because I actually think this is like the best Metroid story I've read. Compared to even concluding, like it's better than the games. I think the storytelling here is like it's a compelling story and feels like a full story to me. Where Metroid stories always feel like I'm getting bits and pieces of stuff, and I'm getting a direct story that I can follow. I know, Doom, you said you had a hard time following it. I really had no problem following it. I mean, I definitely get you. Like he kind of felt like he kind of just Rod just teleported on the ship, but like I just accepted that. I was like, okay, he's on the ship. Like, all right, I didn't need to see him like grapple onto it and whatnot, but that's fine. But I actually really liked how coherent and like a full structured story we got here, which was a nice change of pace from Metroid, which I feel like I'm always wanting more story and like give me more like sustenance, and this is giving it to me. So I actually really like. I mean, aside from some dialogue, I actually like how the story flows, for me. But
I think I almost completely agree with you, actually. Like the dialogue, like I don't want to pick on the dialogue because it is a fan translation. And I think like it's really tough if you're doing like a 1-to-1 translation to like get
capture the emotion and the jokiness in people's voices. Yeah, that's definitely
right. So that's tough. Ridley, he, like I said, at first I was like, this is great, and then I was like, and I do think that you have a point, Doom, where like there are some panels that I had to go back and like reread a couple different times because I was just like, wait, like how did we get here? Like what's happening again? And I do think that's probably another reason why I've kind of struggled a little bit in my years with mangas, because a lot of it is in black and white, which can be just by nature of that a little bit more difficult to follow because it kind of tends to blend together. But I think on the whole, like I would. Like, it was easy enough just to reread a couple panels if I needed to, and I had a decent enough time following along. And, like, once you do start, like, getting that solid story structure together, I was really impressed with the story. Although I guess I can see what you're saying, where it's just, like, if you're reading the summary on, like, Wikipedia or something like that, it's a great story, but maybe in following it, not everyone's cup of tea. But I enjoy. Anyways, let's get to chapter 2 here, and let's keep this story rolling along.
Wait, I just want to say one more thing before we go ahead here.
Yeah.
I do want to say again, the artwork, some really stunning panels in this first chapter. I mean, I love the big sweeping landscape stuff. The space pirate ship. Can we not talk about the Eldritch nightmare that is the space pirate mass? Like
their mothership looks awesome.
Where's that in the games? Like that looks awesome. I really love the juxtaposition of like the traditional sci-fi stuff, but then when you cut to like the space pirates and like the Chozo, it's like a lot more abstract and like demonic at times. Like later in it's really cool. I like it.
They tried to do a little bit of that in Zero Mission, and the ship in Zero Mission just doesn't look as imposing as this one. It looks very cool, and like
I actually hope that it's purple either. Not a very imposing color usually.
Wow. Nintendo GameCube is purple. By
to be
God,
fair,
that's-
Ridley's purple. Ridley's purple
Yeah.
at times, and he's pretty menacing. It just kind of comes off as a generic spaceship. This looks like a
this
big
looks cool.
monster. It's crazy. It's awesome.
This thing looks like Independence Day, like coming out of the clouds, about to blast.
Yeah, and then you have like that big, the big panel where after Rod destroys the ship, and like Ridley is like in the huge amount of fire and stuff.
Yeah.
Of course, at the top it's like, "Hey, you gotta be kidding me!" But like, if you ignore about the dialogue, like you just look at the art, I'm like, "Oh, like it's awesome!" And like the Chozo overlooking it, like it was the final shot, like with Samus's silhouette, like it's some really, really good artwork in here. So.
I agree. I thought that the only negative, it's not even a negative, it's just the virtue of what it is, but like I think that the only thing that I had a bit of trouble with is as you said, Doom, like it was hard to tell which one is Old Bird and which one is Gray Voice sometimes, because it's
Really?
just like, I struggled with that.
One's short, one's tall, one's old, one's not. Right? I mean,
so the characters, in my opinion, are easy to tell apart. It's getting their names are just very easy to get confused. I feel like.
I think when you're not reading it, yes. Like in our discussion right now, they're just two names. When you're reading it, I feel like it's very obvious who is who, and it's easy to keep track of. But then when you bring it away from the manga and you're discussing it, I agree. It can they're just interchangeable.
Yeah. I would agree. I think like obviously like as the story rolls forward, which we'll get to, it's very clear which one is Old Bird and which one is Gray Voice. But it did take me a few like rereads to make sure just that I had my ducks in a row. Be like, okay, Old Bird talking to Samus here, Gray Voice negotiating with Rod. Okay, I think we're good. Okay, let's go to chapter 2 because I was really down with chapter 2 here. So we are introduced to Mother Brain. I love this interpretation of Mother Brain. So she is an AI that controls Zebes and is kind of like the caretaker of the planet. Like she is she's like the Skynet before it goes rogue. And I was just like, there's some Harvey Dent vibes here. I'm liking this, and I think like again, it kind of sets up like what's going to happen, but how it happens is the mystery, and it's really interesting. So you know me, I'm a sucker for like a good AI story. I really like that even about Metroid Other M. So I was just like, ooh, yeah, I like this a lot. And another thing that I liked as well was so the Chozo bring Samus back to Zebes, and I'd never heard this before, but like they were like I think it was the atmosphere or something like that. They're like, she cannot survive here. Like she's going to perish within a couple days max. And that is the reason why they inject her with some Chozo DNA in order to help her acclimate to the environment.
Well, that's what they said
survive.
at the time.
Yeah.
That's what they said at the time.
Well, yeah. I thought that was great.
I missed. Did they specifically say that it's the atmosphere?
I don't know if it's the atmosphere. They did say that she can't survive on Zebes.
So my understanding was that Mother Brain says she's not going to survive. Not making it like, not saying she's literally not going to survive because she can't breathe. I think she was passing judgment on Samus. Like she's going to die. Like she's she's a weak kid. She's going to die. Later in the story, it specifically like emphasized the fact that Zebes's wildlife is more hostile than other planets. Right. Which is another reason why it was helpful for her to have that DNA. But I think that specific statement was Mother Brain passing judgment on Samus. Like, we don't need this human here. It's a 3-year-old kid. She's going to die because she's super weak. She's not going to survive. Not like, oh, she can't breathe the air. She literally can't survive. I think that was my interpretation.
You might be right. I either way, I was kind of like, oh, like it's kind of cool because like they're injecting this DNA, and like at the time it seems like a really good thing, and it does end up being a good thing. But as we learn, there's ulterior motives, which is great.
Yeah, they stick her in the Frieza Ginyu Force like rejuvenation pod from the Frieza saga that Vegeta's in and whatnot. So it's like the same thing. I'm like, all right, sweet.
So are you guys down with this DNA transfer better than Metroid Dreads?
Yeah, I mean, I had no problem with this. I have no problem with like the DNA stuff doesn't bother me. I have no problem with them like, yeah, we're gonna genetically alter her or whatever for whatever reason. That I have no problem with. It was when they started doing the I'm your father, this DNA makes this thing not attack you, like giving DNA magic, like that kind of stuff is way jumping the ship. But like the genetic modification, that's pretty standard sci-fi stuff. That's not really crazy and not something that's unique to Metroid. So I had no problem with that. And it makes sense. That's also something that's been part of the Metroid lore for mad long. So I'm super easy to accept.
Yeah, like this is stuff that like was like in Smash trophy descriptions, like even before the manga. So this isn't like it wasn't like some like brand new revelation. Like, whoa, there's Samus
Wasn't
got
some
DNA,
random
what?
thing that just was made up. Yeah, so that was totally fine with me.
Well, I more so meant like the way that they did it, but your point is
Yeah.
taken. Okay, so we flash forward 11 years. So Samus is what, 14 at this point? I think they got
Yeah, she's like a teenager.
Yeah, I think maybe she should have been like 6 or 7 at the start and like 18 or 19 or something at the end. But anyways,
I agree.
So yeah, 11 years have passed. Samus is training to become a Chozo warrior. She's got the power suit, and we also learned that the Chozo are breeding something on the planet SR388. Of course, we all know what that is. But Samus doesn't seem to have her training completely down yet, but she's getting there. And she still has that little pet bunny, by the way, Pychoni, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And she finds some space pirate bones on the planet Zebes. And I could get this wrong, but here I try. These space pirate bones are releasing these toxic plants, which are carried around by these creatures that are basically like butterflies. And the Chozo are just like, and they eradicate the plants, and they go and they are trying to eradicate the butterflies as well. And Samus tries to stop them, recalling what.
Whoa! Let you're skip the butterflies trying to stop them first by picking up guns.
Well, that yes,
you skipped over a major part of this. The butterflies literally pick up guns. And
I was getting there. These butterflies, these are like
I'm sorry.
These are like the eagles from Lord of the Rings. Okay, these are like big butterflies. So yeah, so Samus is trying to stop Mother Brain from eradicating them, but then these things pick up guns and they're just like, "You want to fight? I'll give you a fight." and so Samus destroys the weapons, but not the butterflies. But then Mother Brain's goons, her robots, do in fact destroy the butterflies. So Samus destroys the
robots from Super Metroid, by the way, the worker,
Yes.
the trash can robots, which I popped off for when I saw
Yeah.
trash can robots. I was like, "Oh, trash can robots, let's go!"
The little the things that look like R2D2 for anybody that doesn't recall what they are. Yeah. This was great. I thought that was cool. And then I loved this after. I don't know why, but like it seems to me like the Chozo basically fire Samus after this transaction. They're just like, you know what? We should see different people.
This isn't working out.
You should go explore somewhere else and become a hero on your own, okay? Like, I don't know about this. We're moving in a different direction. And the chapter's over. That was chapter 2. Again, I liked it. I did think it was hard to follow along with what the hell was going on with the butterflies. I wanted to point that out, especially since Doom brought it up, because I had to reread it like a couple times. I was like, these things have guns? What?
So my understanding was, I think you got it. I think there were space pirates on the planet, dead bodies. The Chozo mentioned that. They're like, oh yeah, there were space pirates here before we got here. Though apparently these space pirate bodies survived long enough to still be like giving off, I don't know, but I think the ultimate point of it, I think, was that they were trying to get across was that even though the Chozo are still carrying, they're still willing to make sacrifices, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like they're willing to follow duty at, a means to an end, which is different from Samus. She's still always going to be emotional. That's her. It's like emotion versus duty is the big theme of this manga, emotion versus duty. And it's really interesting how either in this chapter or later on, they mention how like Samus's power suit reacts to her emotions. It's really interesting because the Chozo try to act unemotionally, even though they're the ones who made it. So the butterfly stuff aside, which I thought was, it's a means to an end to get the theme across. I laughed when the butterflies were like flying at them with guns. I'm like, okay, that's a little ridiculous. So I'll admit that's a bit much, but I overall liked like what they did here. Again, I really love both in this chapter and the previous chapter. Yeah, they had like a reflective Samus. Like Samus is like on her own thinking about like what is going on. Like this is crazy. I love that. I really like the character work here. Like Samus is given a lot of pressure. The Chozo are pretty much like, hey, you're now the protector of the galaxy. Samus was just like a regular girl on this, like a regular kid, like on this colony. Like she wasn't any special chosen one or anything. Mm-hmm. And she's thrust into this crazy thing. Her family entirely destroyed, the whole colony destroyed. The Chozo save her, but then they give her this huge amount of pressure, like you're the protector of the galaxy, like, and she's like reflecting on it. She's like, this is crazy, like I don't know if I could do this. that was one of my favorite parts of the manga, was when she's just kind of just reflecting on that. Even the beginning of the story starts that way. Like, it starts as a flashback, like, you know, she's thinking about what brought her here. So I really like that. Obviously, we got the Chozo talking about cultivating the Metroids. They kind of hint at it in the previous chapter where they're like, we have this huge threat we got to deal with, so we have this other weapon, blah, blah. So they haven't really revealed the Metroids or the X yet, which is, you know, they're really kind of building it up, which is great. We find out the pirates are on Zepus Prior, as I said. I love, there's one panel after the fight or the butterflies die where Samus like punches one of the robots downward and like crushes it. I was like, oh, that was badass. I was like, yeah.
I thought she did that to Mother Brain at first. I was like, oh, damn. Like, no wonder Mother Brain has it out for her.
Yeah, and it was great. And you can see like Samus is very much emotionally affected by what happened to, you know, the gun wielding butterflies or whatever.
Yeah. By the way, Mother Brain in this is just like a floating like
yeah, she's just a little drone.
A drone, yeah. It looks very cool. Dude,
very cool. Yeah, it was a dope chapter.
Yeah, so here's the, I was ready to roast like the whole butterfly guns thing, but like I feel like you guys have already, you know, talked about, you know, pretty much everything there is to talk about that. And honestly, the more I think about it, like on one hand I'm glad it's not canon, but on the other hand, like we also have stuff like Samus getting brainwashed and turning into a giant Kaizu final boss battle, which is still canon and even more ridiculous than butterfly guns. So, you know, I don't know, maybe it isn't so bad. But
I'm down with butterfly guns. I have no problem with that.
that was like Pokemon picking up weapons. It was great.
You know what? Okay, let's go to chapter 3 because I loved this chapter. This might be my favorite chapter in the book.
Oh wait, before we do that, can we? I'm sorry, I keep.
No. Please go ahead.
I do like how they have this kind of. I know you were like, yeah, they kind of fired her, but I do like this little bit of the Chozo, like, hey, like we've done all we really can for you. Like, you need to now build yourself as your own person and live your own life, and we can't just keep you here. We're a bunch of like old birds living on the rock. Like, you got to go live your life. You're a human. So I like that. I like that there wasn't kind of this cheesy derivative like, oh, she needs to go fulfill her destiny and go do this Chozo thing or whatever. Like, they were just like, hey, like, there's no real reason for you to be here anymore. You're almost an adult. Like,
I think this chapter is literally called Destiny, actually.
No, yes, and it is. It is. The chapter is called Destiny. So I like that, like, that is her destiny, so to speak, but it wasn't, like, ham-fisted. Like, it was... Yeah. Again, honestly, I really think the storytelling, like, some of the details, butterflies holding guns, okay, but, like, the main theme, like, how the themes are getting across and, like, what they're, like, I think is really strong. So, I agree. And the decitions they made. So.
Even the butterfly thing, I'm just like, you know what? It's
the worst thing. It's really not the worst
based
thing.
On a video game. Like, there's going to be
like
some shenanigans.
It's like early, like, Dragon Ball, you know? Like, it's early stages. It's getting there. Like, we're getting to the goofy stuff, the comic relief, you know, whatever.
Okay, so I loved Chapter 3, and I'm going to tell you guys why. You know, I'm not a big Star Wars guy, but damn it, I love the prequels. I love the prequels, and this had total Star Wars prequel vibes. So we go, and I liked it for another reason too. So we meet we go to the capital city of the Galactic Federation, which is Daiban, and I just on the whole
almost Iron.
Hey, yeah.
I read that. I was like, oh no.
I just like I like seeing like the real world and like civilization, like what life is like in the Galactic Federation, which I really like, but at the same time, sometimes while I want to see that, I'm like, I don't know if it's an appropriate thing to put in a Metroid game, because like, how do you balance that you know, the atmosphere of Metroid?
It's kind of medium, I think.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So I think that this was fantastic. There's a bunch of like outrageous looking aliens that look like they came right out of the Phantom Menace. It looks awesome. And they're debating what the hell they're going to do about the space pirates, who seem like this like unstoppable fleet of monsters, which, as you point out, Dak, really kind of adds to their credibility as villains. Like, these guys have never been defeated. They've never been messed with. Like, the space pirates are like a big deal here. And like the whole world is coming together to figure out like, what are we going to do about these guys?
See, is literally that I think is really crucial, because in the games kind of make it seem like, okay, the space pirates like exist and the Federation like exists. But here it's very clear, like, the Federation's coming together to deal with the space pirates. That's why it exists in the first place, which I think is a way better characterization, aside from like, as opposed to the games, like the Federation is just a big bureaucracy in space. I don't know how you could get that across better in the games, because agreed, this kind of like more detailed look at the Federation is better for this kind of medium and less so for games, because like, who really wants to watch a cutscene about all this stuff when you want to be playing the game?
Right.
But yeah, I like this. I wish there was a bit more of this in the games. That kind of like the Federation doesn't just exist because it's a sci-fi story. It's because it's specifically to deal with this threat of the space pirates, which circles back to the space pirates stopping them from trying to get the caravan together to unite the Federation in the first place. So it all really works well together. And yes, it is very Star Warsy.
Yeah.
Like it's set up Star Warsy. I don't have too much to say about this chapter because it kind of like the story kind of slows down here a little bit. You start to get a big exposition dump. Samus is like working with the Federation police and stopping pirates from literally killing children, like Six Flags style. Like if you're not old enough to ride this ride, we're gonna murder you.
Yeah.
It's like okay, but yeah, I did like that little look into what the Federation actually is, rather than just being this kind of nameless entity like it is in the games.
Mm-hmm. What's the capital city called in the Star Wars prequels again?
It's not Coruscant, is it?
I was about to say Coruscant.
Yes, Coruscant. Yeah, Coruscant.
Okay. Coruscant? Wow, am I right
Coruscant.
there?
Croissant.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Wow.
Yeah, what'd you think, dude? Or do you want me to wait till we get to the end of the chapter and
well, yeah, I was going to keep going because there's no that's just the first.
Yeah,
half.
that's just the okay. So really quickly, and then Doom, I'll throw it over to you. So meanwhile, while this is going on, we see Samus, who is now a Galactic Federation policeman.
She's a cop.
She's a cop.
She's a cop.
She's a copper. She's like Jet Black, a former cop, now bounty hunter. But so she has some buddies here, by the way, too, which I actually kind of loved, especially for like this type of medium. She's got this kid named Kreatz and this big kind of like, I don't know what he's supposed to be. He almost looks like a gorilla. Yeah.
I wasn't sure if he's. They're not humans. They're like other humanoid. Okay, yeah.
No, they one of them. He's almost like I don't know, like an elf or orc or something like that.
Yeah, he's like pointy ears or something. Yeah.
And then Mauk is the gorilla, and yeah, they're doing some reconnaissance on some space pirates. These space pirates are about to wipe away this little girl because she's too short to do manual work. These space pirates are bloodthirsty. Jesus,
I love that part of it. If they didn't talk like such like cartoon characters,
the line is literally like, spilling blood is the only thing that gives us pleasure in these isolated worlds.
It's like
yes.
It's actually funny how like on the nose they speak. It's hilarious. Yeah.
It's like if the Batman Arkham goons like went anime. That's basically like what these guys are.
Oh, there you go. It's the Bat. So yeah, this is great. So Samus, Mauk, and Kreatz start kicking ass, and they
what a group right there of names.
What would this faction's name be? I wonder. My goodness.
Yeah.
But yeah, so they start handing out receipts, and they take down the space pirates, and Samus is about to kill this space pirate, but she's a flashback as she remembers K2L, and she's also got this little girl beside her begging her, and she's like, "I'm scared, people are dying." So Samus is just like, "You're under arrest," and I
literally put it in handcuffs. The space pirate, it's hilarious,
dude. So there's this character that we meet, and his name is Commander Hardy, and I wrote down, and initially I was just like, it seems like this was written after Fusion was released. I wish it was just Adam Malkovich instead, which actually, as the chapter ends, Adam comes in, so I was just like, yeah. But this Commander Hardy, oh my god, he was reaming these three out for breaking their like
Mario
instructions.
Guy?
Yes, and he's just like, he says something like, "I'm gonna scribe orders onto your forehead and leave you out to burn in the sun," or something. And I was cackling listening to this old crusty commander guy that's just like reaming out these three kids that just went into business for themselves. I don't know why, but I was loving this Commander Hardy guy. But obviously the important thing here is that we got Adam Malkovich, and that's chapter 3. And this is a great chapter, I thought.
Dude, what do you think?
So I actually don't like that Samus spares the. And I guess this is another thing with the manga, is I feel like there's a couple of elements like on its own, it feels like it could be a decent story, but like in terms of the Metroid universe, I feel like there's certain elements that it touches on that
Metroid 2 specifically.
That like, huh?
Like
no,
Metroid
like
2
the Metroid series, like the Metroid series in general. No, not necessarily Metroid 2, but like where. So like the whole thing is like, Samus is like, if I kill this pirate, then I'm no better than the pirate, and it's like, girl, Do you know how many space pirates that we've slaughtered in Zero Mission, in the Prime trilogy, in other end?
But that hasn't happened yet. But that hasn't happened yet.
I also think there's a difference too, because those are actively like you're in combat with those, and they're trying to kill you, and I think it was a little bit different.
She's like, in this situation, she's like the space pirates essentially surrendered, and she's going to execute it. That's different than being in combat. And also, Zero Mission, all that hasn't happened yet. She hasn't. This is the first time she's fought a space pirate.
True. I don't know. Maybe it could be. Maybe it could change later on in the manga, but I thought that was a weird moment. It felt very forced and like uncharacteristic. But it makes sense in the context of like the. I
thought it was very
mecha butterflies
of Samus.
It made sense. It made sense with like the mecha butterflies, but like in that, I was like, I don't know.
I will say this. I think that I kind of had similar thoughts, not with space pirates, but I was like, Samus is very attached to living things here, and I was like, you're about to eradicate all these Metroids. But I think that there's two things. Like, first, the story's not done, so like we don't know what's going to happen to Samus and potentially change her views. And second, like, Metroid 2 is so old that it's just like this was kind of written before we thought about giving Samus maybe more of that character. I don't know. But
I'd say even general Metroid titles, like, I mean, you play Metroid Dread, and like any quote unquote innocent wildlife, if that's in Samus's way, that thing is done. It's
yeah, but that's but again, we're comparing Samus on literally her like first mission as like a Federation cop or whatever versus Dread, where she's had a career of murdering things. Like, yeah she's gonna hesitate here. I mean, I just don't think there's any like character like it's. They're clearly setting something up here by she could have just easily melted it, and then it wouldn't have really done anything. It wouldn't have really advanced the story. I don't think. I kind of get what you're saying, but like in the context, none of that stuff has happened yet, so it makes sense that Samus is gonna.
I think there's gonna be a moment like. Do you guys remember in Casino Royale where Bond finally gets like his 2 kills to become a 00 agent? Like, I think there's gonna be something along those lines where Samus kind of. Another Man of Steel reference. Here we go. Where Superman at the end of the movie is just like, in order to do the right thing, I have to put down Zod. So,
also, let's not leave out the context. She doesn't decide on her own. Oh, I'm no better than this space, but I'm not gonna kill it. She's the girl, the child she saves is crying and it reminds her of herself. That's what motivates her to not. She doesn't want to kill the space pirate in front of the child. Right. That's really like. Yeah, she says like, "Oh, I didn't want to be any better than them." But she was about to do it until she hears the girl and turns around. Otherwise, she was about to do it. So I think that's fair. Like, it wasn't like it was.
I do think that's a fair point. Now that you bring that up,
like, she didn't just spontaneously derivative like, "Oh, I shouldn't do this." Like, she was. It was motivated. So. But yeah,
I do want to say slightly off topic. I'm actually really surprised that you enjoy Man of Steel as much as you do, Andy. Like, I didn't think that would.
I love Man of Steel.
I didn't think that would be a you movie.
That's a great movie.
Yeah, I love Man of Steel. I think it's criminally underrated. I love it. But yeah,
I don't know anyone that doesn't like Man of Steel. Actually, I mean, I know of a lot of people don't.
There are a lot of people who do not like Man of Steel.
There's a lot of people.
I've never met like anyone face to face and them be like, "Yeah, that movie sucked." But
also, real quick here, I like the little thing that Samus does, where like. She turns it around, the space pirate. She's like, "Oh, if you didn't get detected by this sensor, like you get put down, right?" And
that was good.
And the space pirate's like on the ground below the sensor, which was great. And then you have like when Mario shows up or whatever, and he's like yelling at them. You have like the classic panels, like the elf guy's like with his arm, like hands behind his head, like, "Oh, come on!" Like you see like the exaggerated like anime panels. I love like that's. I could like see this as an anime. Like when I'm reading it, I was like, these panels are perfect. Like I could see that brought right into an anime.
Just the bulging eyes, veiny forehead, spit flying from his mouth as he's reaming him out.
Yeah, I really love it. Like
I'm gonna scribble orders into your head. Oh god, that was good.
It's just really cool to see like Metroid get an adaptation like this. I know it's 20 years old, but like I don't know. It's like Metroid has such like little like stuff like this that it's really cool to see like it get adapted into a form that so many other IP have. So it's like, oh, look at this. Like this is it feels legit, and it is legit, obviously, but it feels legit. It doesn't feel like it was like knocked off or like rushed or whatever. Like it it almost feels like you could see how it could exist on its own and not be tied to the games as well. Like this could have just been its own kind of thing, which I think is really cool. And then Adam shows up, and it's just this like stoic Adam.
I have a spicy meatball about Adam, but I want to save it till chapter 5. So let's talk about.
He's blonde? Is it that he's blonde?
No.
Is it just me? Is it just me, or is that he doesn't seem to have dark hair in this? I know it's black and white, but how it's shaded.
I didn't notice actually.
If you give it a look again, to me he looks blonde in this. I know there's no way you could technically tell because it's black and white, but like how it's shaded, like the other guy Mario, he clearly has dark brown or black hair.
But I don't think that matters too much because this is 7 years before Other M.
Oh,
So
I'm not saying it matters. I was just kind of noticing.
Okay, let's go on to chapter 4 here. We got Samus and company. They are. This is a big deal that they took down these space pirates. The Galactic Federation broadcast this like to everybody that's willing to listen. So already there's a bit of folklore and a bit of legend to Samus's name here. Although I feel like they kind of leave out her two companions a little bit, but nonetheless, they have the captured space pirate and they're going to interrogate her. But at the same time, we have a secret. I popped for this. They have a secret meeting in Torian of all of the Chozo. So it's Old Bird, it's Grey Voice, and it's Platinum Chest as well. Platinum Chest is there, and Old Bird reveals the existence of the X. He reveals what they're doing on SR388 and the creation of Metroid Singular. And they
Singular Metroid.
They do this a bunch of times. They keep on referring to it as Metroid, not Metroids, but just Metroid, which almost kind of made me wonder if they were like planning on building like a entity of like almost again kind of like Nausicaa, how they had that thing at the end that they're the big warrior. I was like, I wonder if they were like originally planning on building like this superhuman kind of thing that could almost single-handedly take out the X, because they consistently refer to Metroid as Metroid and not as like a species. It's like it sounds like a person or a character almost. I don't know if you guys picked up on that or not, but it stuck out to me.
Yeah, picked up on that. I wasn't sure if it was like, well, because there are some things that are plural, but the word is singular, so that could have been it. Like maybe the original intention of like the plural for Metroid was also Metroid. I also kind of interpreted it as like, it was almost like a force of nature, like darkness or light. Like that's how they interpreted Metroid as. It was that powerful. It's not just like the individual organisms. It is a force in and of itself, the entirety of it.
Yeah, okay. I like that actually.
I felt it. Yeah,
I like that. Okay, well, let's keep on going here with chapter 4. So we got some bombs being dropped, and once again, I just want to say I love how like this is written like after Fusion came out, so they can really tie everything nicely together. And then we so Olbert actually has an infant Metroid. I believe he has an infant Metroid with him at the time. I could be incorrect.
It's in like a tank or something.
Yeah, something like that. And and it's almost like this one, Doom. I kind of agree. It was a little bit hard to tell. I couldn't tell if it was the Metroid or if it was like the brain of Mother Brain. But I think it was the Metroid.
I think they show both. I think they show.
Okay.
Well, I know later they show Mother Brain in the brain, but I'm pretty sure they show Mother Brain's brain and then also the Metroid separately from that. Yeah, they do, because so when they're in the Torian chambers, the very next panel, you can see the Mother Brain drone, and then the background, the silhouette of like Mother Brain, and then later in that same chapter, they show the X Parasite, and then they show like the panel that just says Metroid, and that's just a singular Metroid in a tank. So they show both.
Okay, gotcha. And then they show all this, and what do you know? We got trouble in the planet Zebes. We have got the space pirate mothership coming into the atmosphere. This looks intimidating.
Crazy.
This looks like the world is ending. This is
yeah.
sick.
Where's this in the games, man? This thing looks sick.
Honestly, it looked like Independence Day when all those ships come in and they're just like getting ready, and it's just like, oh god, what's about to happen here?
Looks like it's about to like it's a big claw about to like absorb the planet. It's dope.
Yeah, Doom, what'd you think about this?
Yeah, I pretty much enjoyed this chapter. I also really like I'm trying to figure out how to explain this. So I like the concept of like the interrogation sequence where it's like this guy, where the whole time this guy is a decoy, and then while everyone is just on board trying to extract information, it's like actually,
whoa, you're jumping ahead, partner.
Yeah,
that's chapter 5.
That's the next.
Oh,
that's the next, John. Yeah.
This is really just the chapter where they're like it's a Chozo chapter where they're revealing the Metroid. Sorry.
Yeah, I think what you're talking about happens in chapter 5, the interrogation itself. They're going to in chapter 4, but it actually happens in chapter 5.
Well, let me get there really quickly. Let's go over chapter 5 really quick.
Okay.
So unless anyone has anything that they want,
I didn't have too much to add to this, but I do want to say a couple things.
Okay.
I thought it was interesting that the Federation. I mean, I like the idea here, like the Federation, like, oh, the space pirates can bleed, like we can take them on.
Mm-hmm.
But like, what Samus? It's not like Samus did anything crazy. Like she just beat up like 10 of them.
Yeah. Like
with the help of 2 guys, like on a recon mission. Like the Federation.
Seems like they should very easily be able to do this.
Yeah, like it felt contradictory. This I think is a bit of a storytelling misstep here. I wish this. Like, I understand it, like, Samus getting involved, like, this is an early mission for her. She's not going to just take on all the space pirates at once. But I kind of wish the catalyst for the Federation to be like, oh, we can take them on was something that was a bit more of a bigger event, like a huge victory. It didn't seem like what they did was a massive victory against the pirates. It seemed like a pretty innocuous win, like a small victory. And they kind of treated it like it was like, wow, we can beat them. I'm like, you guys couldn't have pulled this off, like, earlier? I don't know. I wish that, moment was a bigger moment, but I understand it couldn't because Samus was involved and it couldn't be too big for her not to be able to handle. On the other hand,
I think I agree with that. Like, if they would have blown up a Death Star, for example, that would have been a signature victory and like something,
yeah, exactly. Yeah. It kind of felt like they took out like a small operation, which is a good win, but it didn't seem like it was like a pivotal thing, and they kind of treated it like it was. The other thing that I did like though is I kind of like the detail of the writer covering themselves, how the Chozo were like, yeah, we can't tell anyone in the Federation because we don't want anyone finding out about the X-Parasites and using them to clone their own army and like take over the world. Obviously, ironically, they create the Metroid, which do exactly that. But I did like that they kind of threw that in there because at the early chapters, I was like, why don't they tell anybody about this? Like, why are the Chozo hiding this information? And I guess that was fine reasoning there. There's also oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say you bring up a good point. I don't know if it's this chapter or the next, but like the Chozo do essentially call like the Galactic Federation wicked, and that's like I think that's in the next chapter. But they say
I don't think they trust them very much.
No, something like how actually, you know what? It's the I think it's the interrogation that Doom was talking about actually, where which I guess we'll just get there and we'll talk about it when we get there. But yeah, they obviously don't trust the Galactic Federation all that much.
Yeah, which makes sense, which is why they don't tell them. The space pirate ship is super cool. There's a note about, I think Grave Voice says this, how the Chozo lifespan can't be extended anymore. Mm-hmm. There's a line about that, and it's like a throwaway line, like they don't really mention that again. Like they don't, like, I didn't know the Chozo lifespans could be I mean, I figured they could live for a long time, but like I didn't know it was a thing where like they could extend their lifespans. They don't seem to explain that or why they can't anymore. I didn't know if I missed that.
They sort of circle back to it in the last chapter, but it's murky. It's murky.
I forgot about that, but also how Torian looks in this, very different from how Torian looks in the games. And Torian looks like a shaft of like Windows tabs or something. Like it's like a bunch of like light shades. I don't know what it is, but it's very weird. And if you told me that was Torian, I would not have known that. But yeah, those are my only notes on this chapter.
One thing that I thought was really interesting was kind of how the conflict of the Federation and the Pirates is framed. There's a lot of allegory to the War on Terror, which at the time, I mean, this was 2003, so this was still incredibly fresh back then. And it's very like they don't really do anything with it. It's like, hey, this is kind of like this, and then it kind of ends there. But it's still really interesting to see like a Nintendo property even like try to delve into like subject matter like that.
I don't know if I picked up on that necessarily, but like I do, because like the space pirates to me seem like such a formidable force that can fight with like you know, straight on forest versus forest kind of tactics, where I wouldn't necessarily equate the War on Terror to that, but I think like that's kind of the beauty of that though, is like it's in the eye of the beholder. I want to get to chapter 5 so that you could finish your thoughts, Doom, because I was interested to hear what you had to say there. So here we go. So Ridley is preparing the attack, and in my note here, we've already kind of talked about this, but I was like, the more he talks, the more I'm just kind of like okay with him not talking in the games.
Yes.
I think his dialogue would have been better served if it was shorter and less. So there we go. So Samus and company are interrogating the space pirate, and there's a ton of lore that they drop here, and like lots of different like wars that have happened. They mentioned the species war. They talk about the space pirate talks about the species that Mauk belongs to, that Kreatz belongs to, and how like all these species are discriminated against. And the space pirate says like this Galactic Federation is a sham. It's only it's controlled by the elite species, and he's trying to get under their skin. And it sounds like a lot of what he's saying is true. And I was like, wow, that sounds kind of familiar. and then Samus drops the F-bomb too, which I was just like, whoa. I was not expecting. There's a lot of cussing in this actually, and it's one of two.
I like it.
I was shocked. I was like, damn. Like,
yeah.
And she drops it twice in this manga, by the way, which I don't know. It was shocking to me both times. And then yes, we reveal that this space pirate is cocky, and nobody in his position should be as cocky as he is, and he's cocky because he is the decoy. To distract the forces from what's really happening, the main attack over on the planet Zebes. And yeah, I will say, I thought, so Samus immediately was like, no, I'm going to Zebes and I'm going to help them. I thought that the conversation she had with Commander Hardy was very confusing. It was weird. Like, because he's just like, no, the army's going there. The army's going. And I didn't quite get, and maybe you guys can help me out here, but I didn't quite get what he was trying to say. It's like was he trying to say that like the army's going, they're going to exterminate Zebes and like don't go there because you could get blown up, or like I reread it a couple times and I don't know, maybe it's just again like I'm pretty dumb too, Doom. So I didn't get it. Like I had a hard time with this.
I think what was trying to be conveyed was that the army has been commissioned to do this mission, not us. We don't have jurisdiction. This is out of our hands. We just gotta stay put.
Yeah, because it leads to the setup of what Adam tells her
right
afterward, where she has time that he's given her. I think that was the thing. It was like, again, it goes back to that emotion versus duty thing. Like she wants her emotion, she wants to go, but it's her duty to not go, and she has to fight with that. I think that was also. Like there was also a little bit of she's not going to survive, and I think he was probably like, hey, like the army is going to take care of this. Like you're just like a kid. Like you shouldn't run off to do that.
You're a Federation police officer.
You're a police officer. You don't need to be running off into the first theater of war. So I think there was a little bit of that.
Okay.
And I also think that there's one panel here I'm looking at where Mario says, we can't let the space pirates snatch the Chozo civilization. Until now, we've not known where they are, but the Federation saw that they could be there. With their dignity at stake, the diplomats would surely make a strike very soon. It's my understanding that they don't want the space pirates to get any of. I think you had mentioned this, Andy. They don't want to get any part of the Chozo civilization. So the Federation is willing to essentially like nuke Zebes from orbit. To like make sure none of the Chozo stuff ends up in space pirate hands.
That's what I kind of thought.
I think that's what I think that was part of it too. I think it's both. It's not her. I think you're both right.
Okay.
It's not her job, and also they're gonna glass the planet, and you don't want to be on there because you're gonna die. So like, it's a little bit of both.
This was one I had a hard time with, and I think it's probably the fan translation aspect of it, where it's not quite 1-to-1.
It's definitely a bit confusing because it's like he's almost like agreeing with her, but is like yelling at her too. It's like it's weird. It's not very clear what Mario wants, but I'm pretty sure you both
Mario
got on it. What a Hardy. Sorry.
Okay, I have a spicy meatball here for this story. I think Adam Malkovich is awesome in this manga.
I agree.
He's awesome.
This is the coolest Adam yet. This is the best one.
We've barely gotten any of them, but yes, I agree.
This guy is wicked. He's just like, all right, kid, 48 hours. You got 48 hours to get it done. And I was
literally the opposite of other M. Adam, where Adam would have been like, actually, you're not authorized to go. He's here. This is really good because okay, first of all, when you look at these panels, Adam is clearly a blonde, blue-haired man. I'm sorry, but like if you look at like how he looks, I'm telling you, he doesn't like. Those are the features I could tell they wanted for this guy. I could just tell. Otherwise, why would his hair not be shaded darker? Anyway, he comes in and he literally summarizes Samus's character at this point. He says, "So you're following your personal emotions and abandoning your duty, right?" Like literally the theme of like he says it right there. Which sometimes you need to state the theme. There's nothing wrong with that with being not subtle.
Right.
And Samus like whips around on him and she's like, "Don't stop me, I'm gonna go." And he like doesn't even like flinch, right?
Literally points her gun at him.
And he
It's
doesn't
awesome.
yeah, right in his face. And he doesn't move, and then he's like, "You have 48 hours."
This
Boom. I'm like,
this
"It's
Adam
so good.
is
So
so cool. He's way cooler than Fusion, and way cooler than Other M, and definitely cooler than Metroid Dread. This is the Adam I've always wanted.
Well, there's also another important bit. The reason he says 48 hours, it's not like my personal order. It's like, no, you have 48 hours before the Federation gets here.
Yes.
If you want to do this and not get caught, you have 48
Right.
hours.
Yes, which I think
Which I thought was even better, yeah.
exactly. Yeah, it's not that he's giving the order; it's that he's giving her making her privy to what's happening, and it's like, "Hey, this is the deal. You have 48 hours. I'm giving you that information so you know it's possible." Like he didn't have to tell her that. That wasn't information she knew. And then he just turns around and is like, "That's all."
Yeah. I never thought I'd be on this podcast saying that I thought Adam is awesome, but this guy rocks. He is great. This is the Adam I wish we got in the game. Okay.
Yeah, this is the one we're getting in the Spiteri Other M cut.
Yeah, release the Spiteri cut of Other M, by the way, speaking of Man of Steel. Okay, and by the way, Kreatz and Mauk decide to go with Samus, so we have ourselves a mission. So Chapter 6. So the gang lands in Zebes, and they see a pirate that, unbeknownst to them, has been killed by a Metroid. His energy has been sucked out of his skull. And the pirates attack, and what did you know it? Pychoni is still Pychoni the rabbit. You might remember from Samus' childhood. This little bunny has been a pet of Samus's. Was left on Zebes. Shows up and guides the crew to an underground cavern. And the gang find a holographic message from Old Bird, and they explain that the space pirates have attacked because they wanted the secrets of the Chozo civilization. And he also reveals about the Metroids, and he says to Samus, like, no pressure, but you are the one to save the galaxy and fulfill the Chozo vision of uniting the galaxy and bringing peace. And it's a tall order, but I guess if anyone could do it, it's Samus. So there we go. We kind of have our final mission, and then Kreatz, Mauk, and Pychoni go back to the ship to retreat because Old Bird says, just get off the planet. Like, the Chozo have retreated as much as we can. They probably, the space pirates probably took some of us prisoner, but by and large, you should just get out of here. So those guys do, but Samus is like, I'm getting those prisoners. And she goes and ventures deep into Torian, and wouldn't you know, who does she see in league with the space pirates when she gets there? Is Mother Brain and Grey Voice.
Bum bum bum.
So obviously,
Where's
we
Ravenbeak?
I don't know.
Ravenbeak.
Our boy is fighting Thoha somewhere, but so obviously we all knew that Mother Brain was gonna pull this bait and switch, but I didn't know about Grey Voice actually. So I was just like, dang, that's kind of cool. I like that. So yeah, good chapter.
I did know that twist, but I like the setup. So the reason she goes deeper is because she's trying to find Mother Brain, who will unlock the prisoners, I guess.
You're right. Sorry.
Or something. Okay, yeah. So I just want to make sure I understood that. Yeah, this chapter is pretty much the Old Bird hologram explaining everything, and then Samus is like, I gotta go in there and save the day. I thought, okay, I don't know. Tell me, maybe I was the only one who thought this, but the moment where Samus gives the rabbit to her friends because they're gonna go back to the ship.
Yeah.
And because she's like, yeah, I can't bring him, and she goes like, see ya, and hugs it. I thought she was like snapping the rabbit's neck and like killing it, so she can like move on, but it has misery.
Damn.
Like, because how it's framed, it's like the rabbit looking up at her, and then she's like holding it tight as she's like, bye. I'm like, is she like killing it? But no, they take
God.
the rabbit. The next frame shows that the rabbit runs away with them.
She's not killing that space pirate. But this rabbit,
you're
done.
What? The first time I read it, I was like, wait,
that's one thing.
What?
Yeah.
So yeah, this was. I didn't really have too much to say about this because it's pretty much a big exposition dump. Samus has to fulfill the Chozo destiny or whatever. She's gonna go save the prisoners. They find Grey Voice with the pirates. Oh my god, shocker. Yeah, and not really too much to say here, but cool chapter.
Did you know about that twist, Doom?
No, I didn't.
What were your thoughts? Actually, I have to ask, so where did you read up to? Because I don't think you completely finished, right?
Yeah, so I got to like a few pages into chapter 6. Where I got to was that hologram message
so we just hit you with spoilers.
Yeah, sorry.
Oh no, whatever will I do?
The 20-year-old spoilers.
I thought it was cool, and again, I thought that the explanation for what the space pirates wanted from the Chozo, it makes more sense in the next chapter, and I'm gonna try and get it right. But it is definitely a bit murky, as we were talking about earlier. But I guess without further ado, let's go to the last chapter here, chapter 7. So Samus is stunned to see both Grey Voice and Mother Brain alive and well, and seemingly controlling the space pirates. And I really like this analogy that Mother Brain makes. She's like, listen, Samus, the space pirates aren't evil necessarily. They're like worker bees, and they need to follow a queen bee. And I thought that was kind of a cool analogy to give to kind of show how the space pirates function. And maybe that doesn't completely jive with what we see in Metroid Prime, but okay, fair enough. And so their next line, of course, is like, Samus, join us. Come be on the winning team. The Chozo are in decline. The Chozo are going to wither and decay in no time at all. But you can be the leader, the general of the space pirates, and together with us controlling them, we're gonna fulfill the Chozo destiny, which is to create a harmonized galaxy. Of course, the catch here is that they would harmonize the galaxy through force and through fear and intimidation, and I kind of like this actually, because in its own twisted way, Mother Brain is sticking to her original programming, which the Chozo programmed her to bring the universe together, and it's just like, again, it's kind of that classic sci-fi trope of you create an AI to create a perfect world. Mm-hmm. AI realizes that the humans are the problem with the world and gets rid of them all. So it's well done, but well done. I mean, it's well worn. Sorry, it's been done a lot, but I thought that it was well done in this instance as well. So I liked it a lot actually, and I like this little exposition. Now, this is where it does get a little bit tricky, and I'm going to try my best to explain. But so Mother Brain is just like, listen, I'm going to fulfill the Chozo destiny, but the Chozo themselves are old, decaying, and decrepit, and we're going to discard anything that this new world doesn't need, which is clearly an old and decrepit species. And so Mother Brain's like, I know everything about the Chozo. They've programmed me with all their knowledge, all their secrets, all their powers, and she makes reference to how because the Chozo were such these great intelligent beings, they artificially extended their lives. They created this incredible technology, but at the cost of being able to replicate or create new Chozo. They can't have kids anymore. I think is the gist of what she's trying to say. So they did all these incredible things, but basically at the cost of their own species. So they didn't quite get to the Chozo didn't quite get to the finish line of doing these incredible things where they harmonized the entire galaxy, even though I think she said that they more or less created the bones of the Galactic Federation. Do I have that right?
I believe that's correct, yes. They extended their lifespans, which made it so they couldn't reproduce anymore, which gave them the motivation to unite the universe, which was why they were motivated to start the Federation, and also why they helped create the Mother Brain to run stuff.
After they were gone.
Yes. But yes, and also they helped because the Chozo realized that they were, because there's a line she says specifically, where is it? Something about how she was created specifically because they had lost their not emotional touch, but something they had lost a part of themselves that the Mother Brain kind of stepped in to help with, I guess, which again goes back to that emotion versus duty thing. I'm trying to find the exact line for it, but I can't. I think you got it. I think you got it. So.
I think that's like the general gist of what she's trying to say. And she also has some Ravenbeak stuff going on here, where she's just like, listen, you may think of Old Bird and of Grey Voice as your and Grey Voice is going along with this whole plan, by the way. So he's clearly not all that benevolent.
Oh, sorry. The line I was looking for here was because the Chozo got, in conjunction with aging, the Chozo lost some fundamental skills, so they made me an intellectual support. So that was another thing too. Like because they were getting so old, they were becoming incompetent, I guess, in some ways. So Mother Brain needed to help them with stuff, I guess.
She's their caretaker, yeah. So
yeah, literally.
So Mother Brain is just like, listen, like Old Bird is not like your adopted father. Like I created the power suit that you have. I have the knowledge of the Chozo. I am the one that's built this army of space pirates for you. Like I am your mother. Like I like Mother Brain's like I'm your parent. Like you should be with me and lead the space pirates, and together, we're gonna take over. And Samus is of course just like hell no, and is not going along with this at all. And I do want to say, by the way, I think it's weird how the space pirates all call her mother. But I guess
everyone calls her mother. The Chozo, I think, call her that too. Samus calls her that as well. They just call her mother.
It's kind of weird. I think I knew that though. But just when you think things can't get worse, in comes Seth Rollins himself. Big General Ridley is here, and he has kind of a lame line to end the manga. I thought with he's just like, this is the twerp you've been telling me about or something like that. I think it would have been far better if Ridley just showed up and it was his like. His silhouette or like his figure.
It's so Seth Rollins. It's so like chicken.
I love Seth Rollins, by the way.
Yeah. I do too. But it's like that kind of like chicken poop kind of heel. Kind of like and less
cackling
like
and
exactly
over the top. So Ridley shows up, and that, my friends, is where Volume 1 ends. So I will say.
Wait, can we talk about Chapter 7 specifically before we give our overall thoughts? Or are you?
I was going to talk about Chapter 7. I was going to say
okay,
I thought that the I thought that the ending was a bit I don't know the right word, not abrupt, because I think that was a good point to end it, but like I do wish that Ridley had a better line, or like it was a different panel, the last panel. But I thought that the ending was sweet, and just like I'm pumped to read the next version of it. So I thought that this was great. I think like when you have like the big exposition, and again, I think it gets lost in translation just a little bit, because I mean, this is a fan translation available on metrodatabase.com. But yeah, it's I think it did a really good job of like conveying a lot of information in a pretty digestible kind of way. So I liked this chapter. I thought it was good, and I love the the old trope of like the AI gone rogue, but still thinks it's doing the right thing, what it's programmed for. That's something I will never get tired of, no matter what, almost in any sci-fi story. That is like low-hanging fruit for me. So I loved it.
So I like that aspect, and I haven't read this chapter yet, because we literally started right as I was getting to 6, obviously, but what I don't like is, the whole space pirates or worker bees thing, which unfortunately is something that was carried over into Other M, which I'm not a fan of. I kind of like the space pirates as like this conglomeration of other species that are trying to take resources from the Federation, like for various reasons, whether that be their own self-power, whether that be to sell materials in the black market, whether that be to go past Federation regulation, etc., etc. That always appealed way more to me. This is just kind of like, mwahaha, I'm gonna mind slave you all, and I was just like, okay.
I will say I like the analogy. I do think that it doesn't quite hold up. I mean, specifically like when you got like that captured space pirate who's like very clearly has an agenda. He's trying to needle all the guys against each other. It seems kind of it seems more like
Yeah, I wanted to because I forgot to talk about that when we were doing chapter 5. Yeah, so I thought that interrogation scene was really interesting. You brought up the thing where he also brought in the Federation, where it's like, bro, the Federation literally just let your own species in, and you're trying to tell me that these guys are on your side. You're a pawn. You're a tool. They're using you, and I thought that was awesome. Weird that it's coming from the guy that just wanted to murder a child for fun, but still really interesting.
Right. That's what I
really
mean.
interesting stuff there. And maybe volume 2 will go in more into that, but I really wish that was kind of talked and extrapolated upon more, because I thought that was like a really interesting question to ask. Even even avoiding all the fusion and other M stuff that was done with the Federation. I think that's just a really interesting question to ask in general. And then also, I guess the concept of using this guy as a decoy while the space pirates do their actual mission is cool. Really weird though that only having 3 or 4 people in the room was enough for this to work, when there's like millions of other Federation personnel that can still react and assist whatever is happening. But only having 3 people in that room was apparently enough to distract them. I thought that was weird, but again, I can look past that.
That's showbiz, baby. That's
I
showbiz.
100% agree with that. Oh, that was I thought that was interesting on twofold. Number one, yes, the fact that was an entirely enough decoy for them. Second, it also seemed like whether or not there was a decoy, the space pirates were going to show up anyway. Like, why was there what was going to stop that massive ship from appearing on the planet? It didn't seem like there was anything that was going to stop it. It didn't seem like the decoy was really. I mean, the pirates were already alerted to K2L by just hanging around and following the Chozo. Like, I don't understand why. Like, why doesn't everybody have like sights on this ship at all times? Really, it's massive. It's a huge ship. It's like half the size of a planet. It's massive.
Hold on, because I could be very wrong, but I do. Isn't there a line where they're just like, oh no, you know what? I think the line is actually about the defenses of the ship, not about the stealth capabilities. There's a line where they're just like, we use some kind of technology to like shield us or something, and I don't know if they're talking shield like physically or like shield from detect. There is a line, but it's a very throwaway line. I mean, I agree with you guys. It's like there were no forces. Like, there was a surprise attack by Samus that she wasn't supposed to do. But I guess I also kind of feel like, you know what? Like, if you start really looking into it, like there's probably a lot of there's probably a lot of that kind of shenanigans.
Again, it's one of those things where, for me, if you read it literal page by page translation, it's really goofy, but the concept of it I really like.
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
So, at least for my total thoughts on this chapter, I want to go back to what Doom was saying earlier. I agree about the whole space pirates being like literally controlled as worker bees. I think that's super dumb. I think it's way better as them. It makes sense in this interpretation of them, though. Even though they're called space pirates, they're very clearly like a way stronger force and like a more coherent thing in this story than they are in the games. They don't actually. I mean, aside from attacking K2L, they really don't seem like space pirates at all. And so it makes sense in that interpretation. That said, I'm still not a huge fan of it. I think it's kind of. I mean. I agree. I think it's much better where like they're a conglomeration of species. It's like the Covenant, like they're not literally all the same species being mind controlled, and it does kind of conflict with that guy being interrogated, like you said. Like, if he was just being mind controlled, why is he still like a complete individual? But I mean, I'm not a huge fan of that. I kind of like it better where Mother Brain was just like, she's like leading it and Ridley's really leading it because they're the strongest and the smartest, not because they literally are. Like, it gets into saying like the space pirates are worker bees, like it's decided in their genes or something. I'm like, not for me. On the other hand, the stuff about Mother Brain talking about Samus being her mother, I think is way better, because she's not literally saying that she's actually Samus's mother. She's saying that's essentially what she is. I created who you are. You would not be here without me. I essentially made you who you are. She's not literally saying, I'm your actual mother, like Ravenbeak does, which is why that comes off as lame and corny, and this comes off as, I think, pretty good. I also like how they saved like the creation of the power suit for this. They could have kind of gone into that way earlier in the story, and they save it for this reveal of like, I'm the one who created the power suit, and then it goes to like Samus's like corrupted flashback of like being shown the suit by old bird or whatever, and you see that, and like the power suit like reaches out at her and whatnot. She's having like a nightmare. Like, I love that. Like, and now it's like she's called into like, did they really raise her genuinely, or did they actually have her always in mind as a bioweapon like they did the Metroids or whatever? So that part I really, really liked. I really like that exchange with Mother Brain. The kind of breakdown is like, hey, like us aligning, the Chozo and the Space Pirates aligning with Mother Brain is actually, you know, in Grey Voice's mind, like this is how we achieve the Chozo vision. So it's not even like Grey Voice is like, oh, I'm an evil guy, blah, blah, blah. He's like, hey, this is the winning side and it kind of works for our purposes. So I'm going to join up, you know? So I like that. It makes sense. They asked Samus to be part of the Space Pirate Council or whatever, which again was something I knew about from reading, you know, Wikitroid pages over the years, right? And yeah, I kind of like that. Samus drops another F-bomb here.
Yes.
You know, so that was cool. You know, she's like, again, the other kind of theme here besides emotional and duty is like Samus being a weapon or not. So that's addressed here directly. And then Ridley shows up. Classic Ridley shows up at literally the worst time every time. That is great. I actually kind of like, this is where I'm actually kind of not won over by Ridley, but like I'm kind of with him being this kind of somewhat comic relief, like bad guy, because now we have Mother Brain, who is the serious like antagonist. So I'm kind of okay with that. It's still a bit too anime-y. It's still a bit too tropey for me. Still very Seth Rollins-y for me. But I mean, they do a good job of making him look really menacing. I love his silhouettes and like how he like appears. Like he looks so demonic. I love how they do it. Yeah, I thought this was a really cool chapter. Obviously, this is the midpoint of the story, so it's not really an end. So there is more to it, but this is like everything's built up to this. You know, everything's built up to this. So
I can't wait to keep reading.
I really enjoyed it.
And just my thoughts on the anime as a whole, and maybe I'll keep it. We can maybe delve into the canonicity, if that's even a word, once we finish like volume 2, perhaps.
Canonicity is probably a word, right? Canonicity
sounds like one.
Yeah.
But just because we're running long, I guess my final thoughts on the anime. I was really, really impressed, actually, because it's like, it's not like it tells a complicated story, but like there's a lot of moving parts, and like it was paced out well with exposition and action. It was it tied in a lot of different threads from a lot of it felt like really clean, like a really clean telling of Samus's origin, while also weaving in the elements that we would of course get to know later in Metroid Fusion, in Samus Returns, in Super Metroid, etc. So like it felt like just a really clean, attention to detail, cohesive, easy to digest narrative that like, man, like this would be really compelling, I think, to give to someone that's not a Metroid fan, to be like, you know, this is what this series is about. You should check it out. And I think you could win over a lot of people with this anime. And it's a shame that it's not like available. Like I've got the Ocarina of Time and manga right here, and it's like, man, I wish that they could do something like that for Metroid, because it's a really quality anime. Like the artwork is really good, the storytelling is really good. It's faithful to the series. Like there's a couple shots of like screes and stuff like that in there.
Yeah,
there's like
modes from Fusion.
Yeah. Like there's lots of like good original characters as well. Like I think it's a really well done adaptation, and I've always kind of really quickly, but I've always kind of rolled my eyes at people that are just like, well, it happened in the manga, so it must be canon. I can see that a little bit more now, actually, after like finally sitting down and reading it. Like, yeah, this seems like a really good, compelling story that doesn't conflict with anything. It's really well done. Yeah,
I 100% agree. I really enjoyed it. Obviously a couple of things that are, you know, butterflies with guns, Ridley talking, everyone, you know, like, okay. But overall, I thought it was really good. I thought you nailed it. Like, really well paced, really great. I mean, there are some exposition dumps, but they make sense in like the pacing of the story. You kind of have to do that at times. I thought it was like, I like how they don't outright tell you stuff. There's a lot of good setup and payoff in this. Like fundamental basic storytelling, I think, is really strong in this.
Yeah.
I think the space pirates are depicted like, the space pirates are a pro and a con. They're both depicted like a huge threat, which is super cool. They also talk like complete weirdos and like corny cartoon characters for some reason.
They literally want to eat your flesh. Like,
and I wish they had either like not done that or maybe saved it for just the pirates. But I guess Ridley also, like, if Ridley was also too stoic and dramatic, then it would, Mother Brain needs to, like, I can tell now, like, Mother Brain fulfills that like dramatic, serious antagonist role, so the Space Pirates can't be kind of similar. I thought it was really solid. The twist is great. They build right to the midpoint. I love how much you get. I mean, the character development with Samus is so good. It makes so much sense. Like, Samus is thrown into this crazy thing. She's like reflecting on like how crazy this is, like how much she's lost, like where she fits into all of this. Really, really well done. The theme is very clear: emotion versus duty. That carries through the entire story and is relevant to like almost every chapter. I like how the Chozo are depicted. The only thing I wish with them is I wish we got a bit more of the Chozo being like the protectors of the galaxy mantle thing. Right. I kind of get, like, they say it a lot, but I didn't really see it too much. I kind of wish like we saw a little bit of that, like maybe the Chozo doing something like protecting people, whatever it is, to kind of live up to that mantle. But it makes sense later in the story because, as you can tell, that mantle is kind of self-imposed, It's like they kind of come up with that themselves to give themselves purpose. So it's not something that would be shown externally as much. So I guess that's not I'm kind of just thinking out loud here, stream of consciousness. But I thought it was really great. I love how they worked in like the real world Federation stuff. Samus's character development was great. The artwork, fantastic. Some awesome action shots, some great landscape shots.
Cool panels,
the character designs. Panels are great. The character designs are awesome. I really enjoyed this, and I think, it doesn't conflict with anything in Metroid the games, as far as I know. If someone were to tell me this is canon, I'd be like, "Yep, that works for me." Like this for me feels very legitimately Metroid. Obviously, a bit anime manga-fied. It's very tropey in that way, but I kind of like it. Sometimes tropes are tropes for a reason, it just something works, and there's a little bit of familiarity to it, and you kind of see that same style carried over to an IP you love. So
that's what I thought about Mother Brain. I was like, I love this trope, and I like that they're doing it. And the guns with butterflies, the last Ridley line, there's some silliness, but I can forgive it, all of it, because this did the unthinkable. This made Adam Malkovich cool and awesome.
Yeah, in like a couple panels.
Yeah.
That was it. Yeah, I agreed. This was real. I really enjoyed it. I really cannot wait to read the rest of it.
Doom, thumbs up, thumbs down, thumbs in the middle?
So here's the thing. I was going into the episode ready to dunk on it, but like I feel like talking with you guys and hearing everyone explain their thoughts, it really made me look at it in a more positive light. I still have a lot of criticisms with it and whatnot. I think a big part of it is just, for me, I don't really like a lot of those big tropey anime-isms in Metroid. It just really, I feel like the two clash for me personally. But like taking all that out, taking out some of the fan translation aspects and looking at the core of the story, I think it's a really solid foundation. I only went in here prepared to talk positively about Adam, but as we talked more and more about, there was other stuff, like Samus and Oldbird, that was like, actually that was really well done. Or the whole interaction with the pirate about like how the Galactic Federation is just using you, and once they're done with us, you're next in line. Like I thought that was a really interesting concept, and there's just lots of really cool details and stuff to pull in here that and frankly, I just think it's more interesting to look at what works than what doesn't in this. And so, I really appreciate this discussion, because otherwise I probably would have had a much more negative outlook on it.
Well, I'm glad. That's great to hear. Okay, well, like I said at the top of the show, we will be back and reviewing part 2, and the plan is to eventually kind of get all of the manga over and read and reviewed, which includes Samus and Joey, which includes some of the Metro Prime 2 content, and I think there's some Hunters content as well. And there was one that really stuck out to me where it was like, I think it was written in like 1986 or something, so around the time where Nestroid came out, and it's like a complete reimagining of the series. Samus is a guy, it looks completely bonkers, so I'm looking forward to that one as well. So there we go. I thought that this is a great debut episode for the segment. I'm really excited to specifically finish off this this manga as well, because I think that lots of good stuff going on so far. So yeah, that's you can look forward to that coming at you in the future. But we are of course we're running a little bit long, so I feel like we should get out of here, gentlemen, and remind everybody that if they want to check us out over on Twitter, you can check us out over at Omega Metroid Pod. I am at Spateri316. Dak is at DakCity_. Doom is at Doom_Cross. Check out OmegaMetroid.com. You can get all of your guides, maps, news. By the time you're reading this, I think that, or listening to this rather, I think that we should have our full 100% Metroid Zero Mission Guide ready to rock and roll. So if you're inspired by this origin tale and want to play the closest thing that we have to that, you can go and check that guide out for a different experience, one that'll get you along the game in a different way. So yeah, go and check that out. Wherever you get your podcast, like and subscribe. Leave us a review. We would love to see that. And we're over on Patreon as well. The Great Metroid Area Ranking continues to roll along. So lots of cool stuff going on over at Omega Metroid. But my friends, that is going to do it for this week. Until next week, everybody. Take care.